Now, Augusto, stopping people from having children is genocide by proxy. Why isn't there more
Yeah.
scrutiny on these genocidal environmental ideas that are starting to enter the mainstream, with Western women seriously believing that they cannot have children or they'll destroy the world?
Isn't that amazing? I mean, it's just shocking, but that's the consequence of bad ideas. I have just read recently a book by Richard Weikart called Hitler's Ethics. And it basically claims that Hitler was not devoid of morality. He had a bad one, and he could justify evil things via his worldview. When you have a worldview that tells you that killing or eliminating part of the population is something that's positively good for the protection of the environment, it's just that the person feels that he's doing the right thing, but he's actually advancing a very evil cause. As C.S. Lewis used to say, that worst thing is not to be government by a bunch of criminals, but of those who think that by doing good, they can destroy our individual rights and liberties, because they are never going to stop oppressing us, because they feel good about this. They feel good, for instance, about placing the plastic bottle in the right garbage bin, and it doesn't matter the rest. So that's their feel good factor, even going to the point, as you say, of committing crimes against humanity, claiming that this is going to be beneficial to the protection of the environment. So crimes can be committed. You saw this in the past, even genocide, on the basis of saving something that's considered to be a worthy cause.
Well, it's interesting because Machiavelli said a very similar thing, that it's much better to have leaders who are disinterested in their people than leaders who are trying to micromanage civilization, because they do a lot more harm when they try to intervene. Now, you were just speaking
Exactly.
speaking of children as things like carbon wastage or a use of carbon credits, that sort of, I don't know, it treads very close to the dehumanizing language that devalues human life to the point that slaughter is justified for the greater good, as you suggested. It's happened many
Yeah.
times in history before, where the greater good... Well, look, go back to throwing kids in volcanoes. That's the idea that sacrificing innocent children is for the greater good. So have we come full
Yeah.
circle, and are we already engaging in a form of child sacrifice when it comes to not having children?
Yeah. Yeah, we can even appeal to spirituality here, because I can see the spiritual dimension of the problem. You see, for instance, that there is a sort of religiosity behind this idea of child sacrifice in this current age, where people try to offer the kids at the altar of pleasure, for instance, or the environment or whatever. It's an individualistic society, but it's a society that resembles in many instances what we saw in the Old Testament, with those ancient religions having prostitute priests. You have gods that demanded human sacrifice in order to alter the weather. So you need to have a better weather. You have now the government's actually claiming to be able to change the weather. That's why you have a climate change minister. This is primitive. This is actually a form of religion. I think we are going back to the ancient religions, where people thought they had control over every single process of nature.
Well, I've actually started to develop a new theory after going and researching this, and that it's curious that the environmentalists attack the lives of children instead of the industrial systems owned and operated by the billionaires that shake hands in the back rooms of the World Economic Forum. Now, there is no logic to this.